Revealed, the incredible, life-changing discovery a soldier and his dog made at the laundromat. Jake Thompson stood at the threshold of the laundromat, heart heavy in his chest. The door swung shut behind him, muffling the outside world and its judging stares. With his loyal rescue dog, Max, trotting beside him, they stepped into a realm of warmth, the rhythmic hum of washing machines wrapping around them like a hug. In this modest suburban town, Jake felt like a phantom, adrift in a life that felt not his own. As the machines spun, he found solace in their consistency, but today was different. A glimmer of intrigue caught his eye beneath a folding table. A forgotten bag, its fabric worn and fraying, beckoned him. Heart racing, Jake knelt down, curiosity burning brighter than the shadows of his past. Inside, he unearthed a stack of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. Each page whispered stories of love, hardship, and unyielding hope. They were penned by a mother to her son, filled with encouragement against the backdrop of their struggle to make ends meet. As he read, emotion surged through his veins, connecting them across time and experience. Tears welled in his eyes, echoes of their resilience compelling him to seek them out. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by newfound determination, Jake took to the streets to find the family behind the letters. But as he shared his quest, he was met with skepticism. Locals cast wary glances, whispers trailing behind him like a ghost. Just a broken soldier, they seemed to say. Frustration bubbled inside him, each judgment tightening the chains of isolation that shackled him to his trauma. How could they understand? Yet, amid the doubt, small acts of kindness began to peek through. A barista remembered his name, a waitress smiled, and slowly Jake felt the hard shell around his heart crack. He began to push forward, clinging to the idea that love could transcend their differences. One fateful evening, as he was approaching the family's home, an unforeseen misunderstanding erupted. Someone misrepresented his intentions, and suddenly, he was at risk of losing everything he had fought for. Anger and despair clawed at him, the familiar urge to retreat gripping his chest. But just as he teetered on the edge of darkness, he felt a spark, a reminder of the letters, of the family, and the hope they kindled. Jake fought through the shadows, fueled by the bonds he was forging in the community. Each connection taught him that healing was about more than facing his own demons. It was about reaching out and embracing the shared struggle. With newfound resolve, he discovered that the letters were part of a community initiative aimed at lifting up struggling families. The dusty bag became the catalyst for change. Just as he began to see light ahead, a startling revelation about the letters began to surface, revealing a link that threatened to unravel everything he had worked for. Now, standing at a crossroads, the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on his shoulders. Would he dare to uncover the truth and risk the bonds he had formed? Or would he retreat back into solitary shadows, once again just a soldier haunted by the ghosts of his past? Jake took a deep breath, the scent of bleach and fabric softener mixing in the air. He felt the warmth of the room, the soft lighting creating a cocoon of comfort, yet his heart raced with the weight of impending decisions. What was he willing to risk in pursuit of a connection? Each moment of contemplation only deepened the conflict within him. He longed for belonging, yet fear held him captive. Max sensed Jake's turmoil, his loyal eyes searching for reassurance. "I can't let you down, buddy," Jake murmured, scratching Max behind the ears. Frustration mingled with determination in his chest. With every passing moment, the letters called out to him like the siren's song, promising solace and reaffirming that life could be better. The next day, Jake returned to the laundromat, feeling the weight of the bag he had found. He sat in front of it on the floor, wrapping his arms around his knees. This time, he noticed the faces of the patrons drifting in and out. A mother coaxed her child to help load the washing machine, a couple exchanged playful banter while folding clothes. It was ordinary life happening all around him, a stark contrast to his isolation. The letters were his bridge, and they connected him to all of it. He spread the letters out on the floor, their faded ink and delicate paper telling a story tinged with hope. The words resonated within him, mirroring his journey, a search for healing among adversities. Each line encapsulated the shared struggles of survival, love, and resilience. They were reminders that he was not alone, that everyone faced their own battles, visible or hidden. The door chimed as a customer entered, drawing Jake from his thoughts. A young woman, her face lit with curiosity, approached him cautiously. "Excuse me, are those letters?" Jake looked up, surprised at her interest. "Yeah, I found them." Her brow furrowed as she knelt beside him. "They look important. Do you know who they belong to?" Jake hesitated, the familiar pang of self-doubt creeping in. "I'm trying to find out. I think they belong to a family in need. I want to help them." The woman's face brightened, compassion radiating from her. "That's beautiful. My name's Sarah, by the way. I work at the community center. We could help you find them if you want." Hope flickered in Jake's chest, warming him. "You think so?" "Definitely. We have resources. There are people who even volunteer to help connect families with assistance." "Well, I'd appreciate that," Jake said, feeling weight lift off his shoulders. It was just a small step, but it planted seeds of hope in him. Maybe he wouldn't have to go down this path alone. Sarah's enthusiasm was infectious, courage stirring within him. As they talked about the letters, an idea took root in Jake's mind. What if he organized a community event themed around the letters? A gathering to share stories and lift each other up, honor the past while facing the future together. The thought excited him, a flicker of life breaking through the shadows. But as the discussion flowed, a sudden realization hit him. Did he truly know what he was getting into? The truth behind the letters might unravel buried secrets and challenges he wasn't prepared to confront. "Do you think people would really come?" he asked. Sarah smiled knowingly. "You'd be surprised how many people want to connect. Just like you." As their plans began to take shape, Jake's heart raced with a blend of excitement and trepidation. The gathering could be his moment, a chance to reclaim his life, to heal alongside others. Yet with every step towards connection, the question lingered: what if the truth behind the letters unveiled something more than he could handle? Jake's pulse quickened at the thought. Would he finally find peace? Or would the journey forward shake the foundational beliefs he had tried to build? Thoughts swirled as he stood at the precipice of a new chapter, ready to leap into the unknown. What would happen when he finally stepped into the light? Jake and Sarah decided to meet later that week at the community center. As he approached the building, Jake felt a swirl of nerves and excitement. The center buzzed with life, people were laughably loud, sharing stories, and embracing one another. It felt like the heartbeat of something good, a connection to the world he had been longing for. "Hey, Jake!" Sarah called, waving him over as he stepped inside. "Hi," he replied, his voice almost lost in the din but brightened at the sight of her beaming smile. They sat at a round table in the corner, hemmed in by posters that advertised upcoming events. Sarah pulled out a notepad, ready to map out their plans. "What do you envision for the event?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with eagerness. "I was thinking we could have a sharing circle," Jake suggested, his hands fidgeting with the edges of the paper. "People could share their own stories and connect." Sarah interjected, leaning forward. "Yes, that's perfect. We can invite local organizations for support. Maybe have some refreshments to break the ice." Jake felt the warmth of her enthusiasm seeping into him. The idea blossomed further with every word they exchanged. Soon they were laughing, rifling through ideas, sketching out a vision much grander than he initially imagined. For the first time, the weight of his burdens felt a little lighter. Then, a thought struck him. What if someone doesn't want to share? Sarah paused, her expression contemplative. That's okay. Not everyone has to speak up. We can create an environment that respects everyone's comfort level. It's not just about sharing, it's about understanding. A wave of relief washed over Jake. Maybe this gathering could indeed be more than just a connection to the letters. It could be a safe place for struggling souls. A sanctuary of understanding, where he could fit in like a puzzle piece. As they fleshed out plans and strategies, the time slipped away. Before long, they were knee-deep in lists of potential guests, organizations to collaborate with, and ways to promote the event. Jake felt an unexpected thrill, a surge of hope pushing him out of his comfort zone. However, lurking in the back of his mind was a nagging doubt. What if the families they reached out to had pasts more painful than he could fathom? Would he be able to help them? Jake? Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. You okay? He nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, just thinking about how this will all pan out. It will be amazing, she reassured him, her sincerity brightening the air between them. You're doing this because you care. That's all that matters. Before they parted ways, they agreed to meet again in a few days. As Jake walked back home, Max trotted happily beside him, sensing his owner's shift in spirit. The world looked different today, brighter and more full of promise. But with each step, he couldn't shake the unease brewing inside him. He wanted to move forward, to embrace this new journey, yet he fretted over the shadows that might follow. What if the event brought forth something he couldn't handle? The uncertainty echoed in his heart as he climbed the steps to his apartment, questions swirling in the air around him. Would the families they reached out to share their stories? Would the truth of those letters bring healing or unleash something he wasn't ready for? A sudden urgency blossomed within him. Jake felt the edge of transformation drawing near, but with it came the looming question, how far was he willing to go to find the connection he so desperately sought? And as he sank into the familiar comfort of his worn sofa, he knew one thing for certain: he was about to step into not just the light, but also the unknown darkness awaiting him. What would he uncover when the truths of those letters began to unravel? Jake awoke the next day with a sense of purpose that lingered like a soft morning glow. He had his coffee brewing, the rich aroma filling the tiny apartment. Max lay sprawled by the window, basking in the sunlight. Jake thought about their plans for the community event. Excitement bubbled inside him. He pulled out his laptop, anxious to draft an email for the local organizations he and Sarah had discussed. He knew they needed support to make the gathering a success. As he typed, each word sparked more determination. It felt good to take action, to be part of something beyond himself. But beneath that rush of energy, a hushed voice whispered its doubts once more. What if no one showed up? What if he couldn't handle their pain? After sending the email, Jake decided it was time for a change of scenery. He grabbed Max's leash and headed out the door. Fresh air always did him good. They strolled through the neighborhood, and as the world moved around him, Jake grinned at the children playing in the park, their laughter infectious. Then, out of nowhere, a flash of red caught his eye. An old laundromat stood just down the street. He remembered a time before when he'd gone with his mother, how the scuffed floors and bustling washers had enveloped him in warmth and comfort. The place seemed frozen in time, but there was something inviting about it. "Let's check it out, buddy," he said to Max, who wagged his tail enthusiastically, as if he understood. They stepped inside, the door creaking gently. The air inside was thick with the scent of detergent and fabric softener. A few people shuffled about, folding their clothes, glancing lazily at the worn magazines stacked on a nearby table. Jake felt a strange sense of nostalgia wash over him. He walked closer to a row of empty machines, his thoughts drifting. As he glanced at the rows of brightly colored clothes, A half-remembered memory flickered in his mind, stories shared between strangers in the comforting hum of the washer. In that moment, a thin woman in a bright pink apron approached him. "First time here?" she asked, her smile genuine and bright. "Yeah," he replied, surprised by her warmth. "Just wanted to see the place again." "Welcome back," she chuckled lightly. "I've been working here for years. People come and go, washing their clothes, but the stories stay. You wouldn't believe some of the things I've heard." Intrigued, Jake looked at her. "Like what?" "Oh, you know, love letters left in pockets, heartaches whispered over folded sheets, even a soldier's old uniform returning home, just like you." Her eyes twinkled as she spoke, a hint of wisdom woven into her voice. Jake felt his heart rate quicken. The mention of a soldier stirred something deep inside him, reminding him of the letters they were about to uncover at the upcoming event. What had he been missing all along? "Do you ever think about those stories?" he asked, curiosity overflowing. "Every day," she replied, her gaze drifting out the window. "Some stories heal, while others haunt. But they're all important." It struck Jake then, the connection he had been searching for. He took a deep breath. "Maybe it's time for me to start sharing some stories of my own." She nodded knowingly. "It's a brave step. Not everyone has the courage to open up." As he continued talking with her, sharing bits of his own narrative, a tide of hope flowed through him. Jake realized that maybe all this time, he'd been chasing after something that was already right in front of him. The world was brimming with stories waiting to be told. Max suddenly barked, breaking the moment. Jake laughed, looking down at his loyal companion. Just then, he knew he had to include this laundromat as part of their event. There was healing in those walls, a space where stories could breathe. As they left, Jake felt lighter. The day held a promise, a new light beginning to guide him. But unknown to him, just as he stepped outside, a man across the street was watching. His expression was troubled, a storm brewing in his eyes. What had he heard? What stories from his past were ready to clash with Jake's journey? The intersection of these lives was just about to unfold. As Jake walked down the street, the sun dipping lower in the sky, he felt a renewed sense of direction. The conversation with the woman in the laundromat replayed in his mind, her warmth, her understanding. He realized that sharing his own stories could bridge the gap between their experiences and provide a space for healing. But just as he turned the corner, the weight of a gaze made him pause. A man stood across the street, arms crossed, his brow shadowed by the brim of a worn baseball cap. Something about him tugged at Jake's instincts. He felt a ripple of unease, the kind that prickled at the back of your neck. "Let us go, Max," he murmured, urging his dog to move faster. But as they continued, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. He glanced over his shoulder, but the man had faded into the crowd. Back at home, Jake poured another cup of coffee, allowing its warmth to embrace him. Max settled at his feet, eyes drooping. It was comforting, but something outside nagged at the edges of his mind. Without realizing it, he began pacing, the floorboards creaking beneath him. What had that man wanted? It felt instinctive to dismiss it, but curiosity itched at him. Letting out a sigh, he grabbed his phone and scrolled through the list of contacts, searching for Sarah. They had planned to meet later that evening to finalize details for the community event, but she had been uncharacteristically quiet lately. When the phone rang, it felt like an eternity until she answered. "Hey, Jake." Her voice was bright, but there was an undertone of distraction he couldn't ignore. "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah, just busy. You know how it gets." She laughed lightly, but Jake sensed a current of worry beneath it. "I talked to a woman at the laundromat," he said, careful to keep his tone light. "She mentioned stories how they can heal." "Oh. That sounds interesting," she replied, though her voice didn't hold the same spark. "We need to make sure we have everything in order for the event." Jake nodded, even though she couldn't see him. Right. Yeah, of course. But, what is going on? You sound distracted. Is everything alright? Just family stuff. You know how it goes. There was a pause, as if she was choosing her words carefully. I'll be there tonight. Can I help? I want to be there for you. He felt an aching sting, a longing to ease her burdens. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate that. I just need to sort it out. Her voice faded out, leaving Jake feeling strangely unsettled. It wasn't just the event that needed planning. Something deeper threatened their connection, and he could sense it. After hanging up, he glanced at Max, who stared back with trusting eyes. I don't know what is going on, buddy, but I have this feeling something's brewing. Eager to shake off the uneasiness, he focused on crafting a vision board for the event, a collage of stories, hopes, and connections. Images of the laundromat mingled with pieces of scrap paper sent by others in the community. It all ran wild in his mind, and he began to draw. Hours passed, and just as he felt the momentum building, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Coming. He wiped his hands on his jeans, opening the door to find Sarah. Her smile was strained, but something in her eyes flickered fear or excitement, he couldn't tell. Hey! You made it, he beamed, but his enthusiasm was quickly snuffed by the shadow of her expression. Jake, we need to talk, she said, stepping inside, and Jake's heart sank, the weight of her urgency pressing on his chest. Just as they settled on the couch, the door creaked open again. The man from across the street stepped into view, confusion plastered across his face. Are you Jake? He asked, voice trembling with something unidentifiable. Jake's pulse quickened. Yeah, why? What you're planning, it's more than you realize. Jake looked from the man to Sarah, a storm of questions thrumming in his mind. What truth had the man come to reveal? Would it tie together all the threads of uncertainty? As silence enveloped them, the weight of their intertwined stories began to unfold, and Jake braced for the revelation. Jake exchanged apprehensive glances with Sarah and the man, whose eyes darted between the two of them. The room felt charged, thick with unsaid words. What do you mean? Jake finally managed, his voice low but steady. The man took a breath, stepping further into the living room like he was entering a battleground. You're gathering stories for a community event, right? Well, you don't understand what you're stepping into, what this could mean. Sarah shifted next to Jake, her energy shifting from apprehension to curiosity. What do you know about the event? She asked, her tone growing sharper and more assertive. My name is Tom. The man grabbed the edge of the couch, his fingers curling tightly around it. I just got out of the service, and when I saw you at the laundromat, it hit me. You're trying to bring people together, right? To share their pain? Jake nodded slowly, still confused but sensing a thread of truth in Tom's words. Yes, a healing space, sharing stories. There's a group of us, Tom continued, his voice strained. Some of us have shared stories, but he hesitated, eyes darting again, it runs deeper than that. There are people who don't want us talking. They think our stories are dangerous. What do you mean? Sarah's hands curled into fists, her expression a mix of disbelief and concern. Stories are powerful, Tom said, a tremor in his voice. They can heal, yes, but they can also reveal truths that some people want hidden. If your event gains traction, it can shake foundations. There are forces at play. An icy silence fell upon them. Jake's head spun, a swirl of emotions torn between fear and fascination. How do you know this? Tom took a step forward, his face etched with urgency. I was in a unit that dealt with sensitive missions. We had to bury what we saw. But now, with everything that's happening, I don't want others to feel alone. That's why I'm here. Jake's heart raced as he exchanged another glance with Sarah, who seemed to share his unease. "So you think someone will come after us because of the event?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. "They might." Tom's stare bore into them, unwavering. "That's why you need to be cautious. There's power in what you're trying to do, and not all powers are good." The uneasily silent air between them throbbed with the weight of the revelation. Jake felt the walls closing in, battling the creeping dread that threatened to squash the spark ignited by his original vision for the event. A community united and sharing their truth was beautiful but perilous too. "We'll be careful," Sarah finally said, her tone fierce. "But we want to be silenced. If it's worth it, then we have to go forward." Jake nodded, bolstered by her determination, though a part of him wanted to retreat into safety. "What do we do now?" Tom shifted uneasily, searching for the right words. "Share your experiences. Invite others who understand. But know that you might attract attention, both good and bad. Be prepared for both." As the gravity of Tom's warning sunk deep, Jake glanced at Max, who tilted his head as if sensing the tension in the room. What if every story told in their gathering brought them closer to danger? "Jake, when we take this step," Sarah said, a fierce light in her eyes, "we have to stick together. No matter what." The three of them stood in the living room, the air thickening with possibilities. The stories that had been waiting to be told suddenly loomed larger. As the weight of their decision hung heavy in the air, Jake felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we can help others just as much as we've helped ourselves. It's worth the risk. Just then, Max began to bark at an approaching figure outside. The tension shifted, fear sparking anew. "Guess we're not alone," Jake murmured, edging towards the window to catch a glimpse. Who would step into their lives next, and what would that mean for their fragile plans? The night seemed colder as uncertainty piled back on them, but Jake knew that whatever came next would either break them or forge their community even stronger. And as they braced for the unknown, a question echoed in Jake's mind: who was truly lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment when all their stories came spilling into the open? Jake's heart raced as he approached the window, the shadows outside swirling in the dim light. Max barked especially loud now, his tail stiff with alertness. When Jake peered through the glass, he felt a pang of vulnerability. A figure stood just beyond the threshold of the house, silhouetted against the glow of the street lamp. "Who is it?" Sarah whispered, her breath hanging in the air like a cloud of uncertainty. Tom moved beside Jake, urgency creeping into his posture. "Stay back," he said quietly, but with authority. The tension in the room thickened as Jake's eyes focused on the stranger, whose shape wasn't clearly defined. They shifted from side to side, as if caught in between moments of hesitation and resolve. After what felt like an eternity, the figure stepped closer, and Jake squinted to catch a glimpse of their features. It was a woman, long hair falling in messy waves around her shoulders. He recognized her. Their paths had crossed at the laundromat just days ago. Her name came to him, a whisper of familiarity: Laura. Suddenly, she turned and saw him standing at the window. Her eyes widened before she hurried up the porch steps, knocking loudly on the door. The sound echoed through the house, jolting Jake from his thoughts. "Open it," Sarah urged, stepping forward, determination etched across her features. Jake exchanged another glance with Tom, who nodded, indicating it was safe. With a quick inhale, Jake turned the doorknob and pulled the door open. "Laura," he said, relief flooding his voice. "What are you doing here?" She looked between them, urgency painted on her face. "I need to talk to you now. I overheard something about your event. People are talking." "Talking about what?" Tom interjected, stepping forward, an edge of protectiveness in his tone. "About the stories. The power they hold." "I couldn't just sit back and watch," Laura said, her eyes darting back and forth. "I've felt the same way and wanted to gather people. But I learned there are those who won't let it happen. Jake's pulse quickened. How do you know? He asked, confusion mixing with a spark of hope as he gestured for her to come inside. I have friends in places that she hesitated, then continued, let's just say, they have their ears to the ground. If your event takes off, it won't be just a community gathering. It could become a movement. That terrifies some. The words held weight like stones, tugging at Jake's heart. A movement. The ripple effects of healing could be profound, but also dangerous. So, what do we do? He asked, desperation leaking through his steady facade. She stepped further into the room as they closed the door behind her. We need to be prepared. If we're going to do this, we need more voices, more stories. That means we need to reach out to others who want to share and who can protect us. Jake thought about what Tom had said, the hidden forces at play. You think we can tap into that power? Laura nodded, a steely determination emerging. Yes, but we have to do it carefully. Each story told is a thread woven into a much larger tapestry. We need to protect one another. As the urgency of her message sank deeper, Jake felt that familiar flicker of hope reignite. There was strength in numbers, a unity that could transform fear into resilience. He looked at Sarah and Tom, who shared the burden of the unknown. What's our first move? Sarah asked, her voice clear, anchoring them in purpose. We need to plan. We'll gather a few trusted people first, Laura proposed. When the time is right, we amplify it, bringing everyone in. As they began to whisper strategies and ideas, an unexpected thought crossed Jake's mind. What if they attracted attention that could destroy everything they built? But then, he realized that staying silent was no longer an option. Laura looked straight at him. Whatever happens, we're in this together. Max barked again, but this time it felt like a promise, a reminder that they were not alone. Just as the atmosphere started to lift, a loud thump came from outside, followed by muffled voices. Did you hear that? Tom asked, straining to see through the window. A chill ran down Jake's spine. What if they're already coming after us? He took a deep breath, knowing their fragile plans were teetering on a knife's edge. Everyone, we need to stay alert. Who's out there? As they readied themselves for whatever was lurking outside, Jake realized this was only the beginning. The moment of truth loomed near, and they had to decide what kind of community they were willing to risk everything for. What did the darkness outside hold? Would their bravery lead to strength, or was there darker power at work, waiting to strike? Jake's heart thundered in his chest. He felt the echoes of uncertainty surrounding them, wrapping like a heavy blanket. The thumping continued, louder now, punctuated by exchanged whispers that only heightened the tension. Was it just a prank? Or something more sinister lurking in the dark? Stay calm, Sarah said, her eyes darting between Jake, Tom, and Laura. We can't let fear take hold of us now. Max, sensing the emotional shifts in the room, growled low in his throat, positioning himself protectively in front of Laura. Jake admired the dog's loyalty, but he also recognized that courage didn't mean charging headfirst into danger. It meant standing together, ready to face whatever came next. Taking a steadying breath, Jake moved toward the door, his instincts kicking in. We can't just sit here. We need to find out what's happening. Jake, wait. Laura grasped his arm just as he reached for the doorknob. Her grip was steady, but there was fear in her eyes. Let's not rush into anything. We don't know who or what is out there. I have to know, Jake insisted, catching the sparkle of determination in her gaze. If this is someone trying to disrupt us, we need to confront it. We can't let fear win. Tom nodded slowly, his face grave. Look, I'm all for bravery, but let's not be reckless. We don't have a plan, and we don't know how many are out there. But Jake felt the weight of the moment pressing in on him. If we're going to do this, we have to show we are not afraid, or they'll walk all over us. Isn't that what we're rallying against? A shared, silent understanding settled over them. All right, Tom finally relented, glancing at Sarah. But we stick together. No one goes off alone. Sarah crossed her arms and nodded her agreement. Jake took a deep breath, then turned the doorknob. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit porch sprinkled with shadows. He peered out, squinting against the light from the street lamp. "Hello?" Jake called, his voice more confident than he felt. "Who's out there?" At first, silence greeted him. The muffled voices continued, one sounding alarmingly familiar. Then, as if echoing back from the depths of anxiety, a figure stepped into view. Jake's breath caught as he recognized the voice. "Jake? Is that you?" It was Ben, his old army buddy, tangled in shadows. "What are you doing here?" Jake stammered, stepping out further, his heart soaring with disbelief. Ben rushed forward, his face glistening with worry. "I've been looking for you. You're in danger, man. We need to talk, and it cannot wait." Laura stepped beside Jake, her expression a mix of relief and confusion. "Danger? What are you talking about?" Ben glanced around, lowering his voice as if the night itself might listen. "It's about the event, and the people who are interested in stopping it. I'm sorry to drop this on you, but you're being hunted." Jake's heart sank and raced simultaneously. All their hopes seemed to coalesce with this revelation. Hunted? Why? Who? How could you know this? Ben's brow furrowed deeply. "I didn't want to believe it, but I overheard conversations at the last meeting. Powerful people think your stories are a threat. It's bigger than just this town, they're seeing this as a movement. They will do anything to maintain control, anything." Fear clamped down tightly, but beneath it, a flicker of fire ignited in Jake's chest. They had a choice: conceal themselves or push back against the oncoming tide. As Ben stepped closer, urgency in his eyes, Jake felt an overwhelming need to act. This was more than about them now, it was about every narrative waiting to be told. "What do we do next?" Jake asked, determination creeping back into his tone. Ben looked around at the small team gathered, their faces reflecting uncertainty mixed with resolve. "We need to gather what support we can. It's time to show them we're not backing down." In the shadows beyond the porch, the darkness lengthened, as if awaiting their decision, ready to swallow them whole if they faltered. Jake stood at the precipice, a dawning realization capturing his heart. Are we really ready for this? But as swelling dread gave way to newfound resolve, he knew their answer had to be yes. What awaited them on the other side of this choice? And would they be able to rally the community to stand behind the stories they so desperately wished to share? The moment hung heavy in the air. Ben's words echoed in Jake's mind, stirring a potent mix of defiance and fear. He glanced back at his friends, searching their eyes for a flicker of encouragement. What if they failed? What if they tried to stand up and only made things worse? Laura's voice broke through his thoughts, steady yet unsure. What if we get hurt? I don't know, Jake replied honestly, his voice cracking. But we can't let them silence us, Laura. This is everything we've worked for. Sarah stepped forward, her spirit undeterred. We need to think this through. Gathering support means we'll need to convince others to stand with us. It's not just about us anymore. Tom nodded, fingers tapping anxiously against his leg. Let us brainstorm first. We can hit the community center. That's where the heart of this movement is. People care there, they'll listen. The urgency in Ben's eyes didn't wane. We don't have all night. They're watching. Right now, we have the element of surprise. But it won't last. With a determined nod from Jake, the four of them sprang into action. They moved as one, gathering their things: flashlights, pamphlets detailing their event, anything that could help rally others to their cause. Max padded alongside them, instinctively sensing the rising tension, his protective stance filling Jake with courage. As they stepped back inside, the echoes of the night enveloped them. The world outside had shifted, turned dark and eerie. Each rustle of the wind felt like a warning, a reminder of the danger surrounding them. "Stick close together," Ben instructed, leading the way as they exited the porch. "Don't stray. We can't afford to lose anyone." They moved through their neighborhood, illuminated by flickering streetlights that illuminated the honest grit of their broken sidewalks. Jake's heart raced, not just from fear of the unknown but from the anticipation of what lay ahead. This was what they had been seeking, a chance to untether their voices. At the community center, the building appeared stagnant, lights confined to the windows. It felt like stepping into another world, a sanctuary against the encroaching dark. But as they approached, a sliver of light broke through the gloom. "People are still inside," Tom whispered, a mix of relief and apprehension flooding his expression. As they pushed through the double-glass doors, the sounds inside washed over them: laughter, chatter, the comforting hum of community. The gathered crowd was a mix of familiar faces and new ones, each person woven into the fabric of their small town. "Is everyone here for the event?" Laura asked, scanning the room with a hopeful glint. "Not everyone," Jake said, leaning closer to her, anxiety creeping back in. "But if we make our case clear," maybe. As Jake stepped forward, he could feel a weight bearing down on him, a palpable gaze from the group who would either lift them up or crush them. He cleared his throat, but the world around him faded momentarily. Moments like this could define everything. "We need you," he started, taking a deep breath as he locked eyes with those gathered. "We're facing a threat that could silence us all." His voice wavered but remained strong as he pushed through his nerves. He could see them listening, leaning forward, hearts beating with a shared urgency. But just as he began to feel the stirrings of hope, the unmistakable sound of tires pulling into the parking lot outside shattered the moment. A ripple of tension swept through the crowd like a sudden storm. "What if it's them?" Sarah whispered, her eyes widening in alarm. Jake's heart skidded to a halt, and he turned to Ben. "What now?" The door creaked open, and a chill swept in with the night. He felt the collective breath of the room as all heads turned toward the entrance, shadows shifting. Would they step into the light, or would the darkness consume them? Their answers hung in the balance, precariously close. The next few moments would unfold in ways they couldn't possibly predict. But one thing was clear: this was just the beginning of something much bigger than themselves. Would they find the courage to face whatever walked through that door? The door swung wide, revealing a tall figure shrouded in darkness. The moment stretched out, an awkward silence replacing the noise of laughter and chatter. Jake's heart thudded in his chest, fear mingling with a flicker of challenge. "Who are you?" he called out, instinctively stepping in front of Laura, his protectiveness flaring. The figure took a step forward, the dim light casting ominous shadows across their face. Then they stepped into the open, revealing themselves to be a woman wearing an authoritative expression and a clipboard, accompanied by two other suited individuals who shared her determined gaze. "Good evening. I'm Officer Collins," she said, her voice steady. "We received reports of a potential disturbance here tonight. We received concerns from the community." A ripple of uncertainty coursed through the room, everyone whispering among themselves. What did that mean for Jake and the others? Disturbance? Tom echoed incredulously, stepping beside Jake, his stance radiating defiance. "We're simply holding a community gathering." "Community gathering, you say?" Officer Collins's brow furrowed thoughtfully. "You understand, just because you are not causing trouble, doesn't mean that someone isn't watching you. There are individuals who feel threatened by the narratives being shared, a ripple effect that could lead to unrest." Jake could feel the tension tightening in the room. Was she suggesting they shouldn't even be here? Would they be silenced before they could even begin? "We're just sharing our stories," Jake replied, his voice firm, refusing to back down. We're trying to help our community heal. Isn't that worth something? The crowd began to murmur in agreement, voices rising in solidarity. Officer Collins looked around at the gathered crowd, her expression softening slightly. I understand. And while your intentions may be good, the world carries unforeseen consequences. You may find help comes at a cost. What do you mean? Jake asked, frustration boiling to the surface. Collins straightened. There are some who would rather keep the status quo, those who believe that stories of hardship and struggle should remain hidden. They see what you are doing as an uprising, a threat to their control. A hush fell over the room as the gravity of her words sunk in. Jake's heart both raced and sank, his spirit teetering on the edge. Someone's already lost a battle. A voice from the back broke through. Laura turned to see a familiar face, Ben's fellow soldier, Jacob, stepping forward. I was warned. They aren't just watching, they're taking action. Collins raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Have you experienced this firsthand? Jacob nodded, his expression etched with seriousness. We have to band together. This is bigger than any of us, they don't want us sharing what we've seen or felt. The crowd murmured again, their emotions cascading between fear and determination. A flicker of courage ignited within Jake as he saw the faces of his friends, the connections forming and solidifying, each story tied to another. Then let them try to silence us. He shouted, his voice rising above the murmur. We are a community. Our pain matters, and our healing matters. We will not be bullied into silence. A wave of energy surged through the room, the collective spirit pushing back against the darkness threatening them. Glassy eyes glistened with understanding, hearts beat in unity. Let us gather our stories, Sarah said, stepping forward, her eyes ablaze with conviction. We'll invite everyone who's ever been affected. Let us show them the power of unity. Jake could feel the moment shift, an undeniable spark of inspiration taking flight. They were no longer just individuals trying to create change, they were becoming a powerful collective, blazing a path toward truth. Let this be a rallying cry. Ben added, joining in. We haven't come this far to turn back now. As the group collectively echoed their agreement, Jake felt a thrilling rush. Community members quickly started teaming up, grabbing supplies, looking up resources, and fitting pieces together that had long remained dormant. The laughter and chatter resumed, but this time it was different, electric with energy, determined, resolute. The stories can't just be surfed over, Officer Collins interjected, her voice cutting through the fervor. They should run deep. I will provide you information on where to gather those connections. But take care. Jordan, another of Jake's old army friends, stepped closer, an unmistakable strength radiating from his stance. I'll spread the word. You need allies who are willing to protect our right to share. As the plans spiraled into action, the foundation around them strengthened. One by one, more community members joined. The fear that had once held them captive began to splinter, giving way to a determined lightness. With renewed vigor, they rallied resources, forming a tapestry woven from individual threads of courage and shared resolve. The night stretched long, each hour igniting within them the embers of purpose, the glimmer of change brewing at their feet. As Jake glanced around the room at his newfound family, he took a breath, exhilarated yet apprehensive. He hadn't expected to forge connections this way, an era of healing rising from the ashes of struggle. But with the dawn of their stories also loomed the shadows of the unknown, the danger still whispering in the winds. Together, Jake said, voice strong. No matter what happens, we share this ground. If it means standing against forces unseen, then it's our stories that will lead us home. As he spoke, he felt the pulse of their collective heartbeats synchronize, marching forward with unwavering courage. This was just the beginning. The truth had been unearthed, and together they would face whatever darkness awaited them, armed with the power of each other's stories. And in that moment, they were unstoppable. The next chapter would not just be about survival, it would be about reclaiming their right to exist, to thrive, to be heard. They were a community. They were change. And as Jake led the charge, hope surged through him. Inside the illuminated walls of that community center, they found their new family. As the adrenaline coursed through their veins, a commitment crystallized: they would not be silenced. The power of their stories would be a force of resilience, unveiling truths long buried and lifting them all towards the light. Now it was time for the world to hear their voice. As this chapter drew to a close, one could only wonder, what transformations lay ahead? What connections would be made? What other stories would intertwine with their own? The answer was rooted deep within a new purpose, waiting to unfold. If you felt the spark of this journey, this is your call to action. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like to feed the algorithm and comment your thoughts and feelings about this powerful ending. Join us on this journey. Your voice matters. Your story counts. Together, we rise.